That's where the action is, over here. Now, it's nice to hear topics that we all, in one sense, people that are information seeking, it's boring. It's like chanting japa is boring because it's the same mantra over and over again. But spiritual topics are not boring. Spiritual topics are relishing the subject, and Hanuman is our subject. We already had a discussion about Hanuman up until Kishkinda Kanda, and Kishkinda Kanda ended when Hanuman was reminded by about his prowess. And as he was reminding him about his prowess, his body got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. Beginning of Sundarakanda is Hanuman standing atop of Mahendra mountain. Hanuman is standing on top of Mahendra mountain. There's something like 25 verses that describe his preparing himself to jump. And that could be a class in itself, at least 45 minutes, discussing each of those, what happened when he was crouching and himself, etc., etc. And the commentary of the Sri Vaishnava Acharyas, particularly Govindaraj, make it very clear that Hanuman is acting as guru, empowered by Lord Ramachandra himself to rescue a living entity. In this case, it's Sita, who, according to the Acharyas, acted as a conditioned soul would act. We had a lengthy discussion this afternoon with somebody about misuse of free will. For the first time in her life, Sita desired enjoyment separate from Ram. This is what conditioned souls do. There was no reference as the golden deer to Ram's enjoyment, about Sita's enjoying an object out there. And their commentary is very, very clear. she was behaving that way for purpose of Ram's Leela. It was a perfect fit. Just like we heard, I don't know if you heard Karmarupa read what Ram said to Kaikeyi. Ram said to Kaikeyi when she came to Chitrakoot, and in a private place sat Ram profusely apologizing, explicitly saying, Valmiki Ramayana, or at least in the Dharma rendering of Ramayana, that she understood that he's the Supreme Personality of, and she had no understanding like that before, and her affection lost in her mind, becoming bewildered, etc., etc. Very genuine, heartfelt apology. Ram heard her out and said, please understand that it is I who inspired you to think like this and speak like this. Basically saying, I'm a super soul. I mean, he doesn't say, but he's saying, I'm super soul. And I inspired you to say like this. So please understand, there's nothing for you to let go of these sad emotions and fix yourself in consciousness of me. When you go back to Ayodhya, always think of me and you'll become purified and you'll come to me at the end. Something like that. Not exactly the same, but something like that is the inspiration for Sita in teaching the lesson of surrender, which is Ramayana, is the lesson of surrender, to act as if she was not who she is, to act as if she was one desiring enjoyment separate from Ram. That's not possible for Sita. But that's what she did, inspired by Ram to do. And then it took Guru to rescue the living entity, had that kind of contemplation back shelter of Ram. That's the picture that the Sri Vaishnavas paint of this untoward event, sorrow-filled event. So Hanuman is the guru, and his preparing him for all the steps and this and that and that and the other thing is what the guru needs to do in order to fulfill the mission of Ram or Krishna or the Supreme Lord, of finding souls and bringing souls again to the Supreme Lord's shelter. It's very nice. I mean, it's not that Ramayana is more, but built within the teaching is a very nice description. And Sundarakanda, then there's also like 8 different explanations of why it was called Sundarakanda. Sundara, 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 having to do with beautiful Ram, beautiful Sita, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. It's all very beautiful. Here's another very interesting, Atma Tattva. Some of you may know who is Atma Tattva, Prabhupada disciple. He has this very, very interesting description of how Sundarakanda got its name. So Valmiki was composing, and Hanuman visited, and he asked, what should I call this Kanda? I want to call it Hanuman Kanda. No, don't call it Hanuman Kanda. Well, another name I was thinking of was Sundarakanda. Oh, yes, Sundarakanda. All right. Then Hanuman went to visit his mother, Anjaneya, and she heard him coming. She said, "Oh, Sundara. Oh, Sundara. What did you call me, Sundara? You remember when you were a small was always calling you Sundara. Mother naturally thinks their child is beautiful. Said, "Oh, I'm going back to Valmiki to tell you to change it." He said it's too late. Sundarakanda. Sundarakanda. It's about Hanuman. The whole Kanda is about Hanuman. And his function as guru on behalf of Ram. Of course, there's other things he's doing. He doesn't just give Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam classes. He does many things. Here's a nice text written by Jamunacharya from his Stotra Ratna. You, Hanuman, are the Lord's servant and carrier, seat, flag, canopy, and fan. You embody the three Vedas. Even in the presence of Garuda, you are graced with the honor of massaging the Lord's lotus feet. So Garuda serves as the carrier of Vishnu, but Hanuman does even more than that. We don't find Garuda massaging the Lord's lotus feet, but Hanuman can do that. Yamunacharya was a great devotee of Ram. You know that story about Yamunacharya's life? Anyway, Yamunacharya, Stotarana. Another nice painting. He, after Ram departed, he, along with others in Kim Varsha, Kim Purusha Varsha is one of the 9 Varshas in the central island of Jambu Dweep, Purusha Varsha. What's wrong? Kim Purusha Varsha is a place where he and others are constantly singing the glories of Lord Ram. This isn't such a nice painting. Dressed and has a very nice hat on and nice ornaments. And he's not thinking of those things. He's thinking of giving his benedictions. He's at the top of Mahendra Mountain, and he's offering his prayers to Surya, who is his guru. And I searched to find any detail of how the circumstance under which Surya gave teachings. We hear he gave this benediction. You become very erudite and you become very eloquent and so forth. But at some point he gave scriptural teachings to Hanuman, who sees Surya as his guru, and Vayu, of course, as his father. So before departing, he's seeking the blessings. And he's, of course, fixing his mind, because without the power that Ram invested in him and will continue to invest in him, he will be unsuccessful. He's successful because it's for the pleasure of Ram. This is a painting. I don't know exactly why they put Rama and Lord Shiva, but he's seeking blessings from everybody. And there he is, crouched and ready to jump. And it's a big jump. How many miles?
800.
800. 800? Can you jump 800 miles? Can you jump 800 miles? How far can you jump? 1 mile? I'd like to see that. You're pretty good, though. Maybe across the room. Half across the room.
So his jump from the school was about 5 feet more. Long jump.
Who did that? Really?
Oh, yeah, that's what
Okay. Well, if you want to learn how to jump better, you find Hanuman and he'll teach you. And we find Hanuman totally fixed in his meditation on his mission and service, not the doer, he's the servant, and he's carrying out Ram's prayer. And it's two things: find Sita and report back. So they have an idea, but he does beyond the finding Sita part. So there's three obstacles or interruptions in his journey across. The first one is Mainaka Mountain. Mainaka Mountain was friendly, and there's a very nice explanation given right in Ramayana. Hanuman declines. Mainaka says one should acknowledge a favor and try to pay it back. This is Sanatana Dharma. Isn't that nice? Krite means is translated in many places. It's translated as favor or kindness that's extended to you. If someone extends a kindness to you, you should acknowledge it and you should try to pay it back. It's not like material, but it's dharma. Now, people may do things like that materially, but dharmic or culture do this in a different mood. They do this in a manner of, certainly in a manner of culture, in a manner of acknowledging and performing dharma. The explanation of why it that Mainaka is considering this dharma is Mainaka says that the god of the sea approached him and said, I received a great favor from Ram's ancestor. Ram's ancestor, one of Ram's ancestors, was Sagara. And Sagara, his 60,000 sons, expanded the dimension of the ocean as they were searching for the missing Ashvamedha, the horse. And so later, when Agastya became very angry with the ocean, was drying it up, Sagara continued to fill up the ocean. So I, the ocean personified, indebted. So can you help me, Mainaka, fulfill this debt? And Mainaka said, I also received some krite from your father, Vayu. Very interesting. At one time, mountains had wings, and Indra didn't like it. And so with his thunderbolt weapon, he was knocking off their wings. And Mainaka took shelter of Vayu, who hid within the ocean to protect him from Indra's both thunderbolts. So I, Mainaka, am indebted to your father, and the ocean lord is indebted to your forefather, the forefathers of Ram, and you're in service to Ram. So I want to acknowledge. So please come and take some rest. It's a long journey. So what did Hanuman do? He's cultured. He touched the side of the mountain and offered his respects. And off he goes, carrying on with his journey. The next was Shurasa. Shurasa was sent by Indra because Indra wanted to test, wow, this Hanuman is really something. What will happen if an actual Rakshasa tries to stop him? So Shurasa to stop him. And sure enough, she's very happy, opening her big mouth. This is a Indonesia or Malaysia painting. And there's another one like this. And drawing really big mouth and her made her mouth so big, Hanuman made his mouth bigger, made himself bigger. She made her mouth bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And then she finally said, I got this benediction from Brahma that no one can pass until they enter my mouth. So Hanuman didn't want to violate what Brahma had said. So he entered her mouth, became very, very small. And then he exited her ear. And Shurasa was tricked by the mystical Hanuman. Then to see Simhika, he was traveling. She was able to control his movement by his shadow. But by his shadow, he couldn't move. What's that? It's a Rakshasa, Simhika. And Simhika bellowed out, no one can me, or you must be devoured by me. So obliged, Hanuman entered her body and came out. It says the side of her neck, but here it shows her throat. The end of Simhika. When he got to Lanka, look at this big lady with a big club, Lankini, previously was in some service to Lord in his abode. Very proud of her special service. And so she was cursed by Brahma to take birth as a Rakshas. And so she did. She became guard for Lanka. And as soon as she saw Hanuman, he very cleverly made himself really small. And who are you? Get out of here. You don't belong here. This is Lanka. I'm in charge. And he decided, I won't kill her. I'll just give her a tap jaw, knock her down. And so he did. And so she was knocked down like that. She then understood that saying like a fable in Lanka, that one day a monkey will, when that monkey comes, the whole of Lanka will be destroyed. So this means you're that monkey and the whole of Lanka is going to be destroyed. And so she submitted herself and granted entry into the city, Hanuman. And she quickly ran off to tell Ravan what happened. Here's a nice, the golden city. We heard the history of how Lanka was first built and how it changed hands several times and then eventually became inhabited by Ravana. Previously, it was by his stepbrother, Kuvera, but he kind of bullied Kuvera out, and under the advice of Kuvera's father, just let him have it. So he has this opulent golden city, Lanka. And when Hanuman came, it was at night. He made his body very small, and he went here and there through the whole Lanka, including even the chambers of Ravana, where the ladies were and where Ravana was, and he was marveling the power and the features of Ravana, etc., etc. But wherever he went, he examined Pushpaka Vimana, very detailed description of Pushpaka Vimana, probably the best description in the whole of the Ramayana, like what it looked like. And he was chastising himself. Why am I looking here? Sita's not going to be with Ravan's harem, but I have to look everywhere. So I am a brahmachari, but I have to look. But she couldn't find her. He couldn't find her. And he couldn't find her. A very nice little passage is, as you see here, he is seated on a wall surrounding Lanka. And what do you do when you have some service to do and it seems like it's not happening? There's lots of things that can be what's next. But he's a very capable personality, and he just decided, I'm going to redouble my efforts. Started to look everywhere he already looked once again. With his intelligence, he began to consider, is there someplace I haven't? The garden. Sita always liked gardens when she was living in Lanka, living in Ayodhya. So this is one of those things that shows many things in one painting. Here's Hanuman flying through the air, and he finds Sita. Oops. See, oh, we can't do the. Well, if the that's Sita under, and Hanuman is observing what's going on there under the tree. There's Ravana doing the Ravana. There's some Rakshasis doing the Rakshasa program. And he finds Sita in that secluded place. He's still not sure, but as he's surveying the situation, it's like, you know, the description, although her body is emaciated, her natural beauty shines through anyways. And he came at a particular time when Ravana is testing her one more time. Because on a regular basis, he would come, try to entice her, promise her this and that, flatter himself this and that, flatter her this and that. And he did so. She spoke so heavily. You know, no way I have anyone other than Ram. Oh, Ram's puny, and he's this and that. And he's in a forest. And look at me, I've got all. And she'll be my principal queen. We'll take you everywhere in the universe. I've defeated this one. I've defeated that one. You'll be my best queen. And she speaks really strongly, and speaks so strongly that Ravana becomes enraged. At this exchange, he then Ravana, the Rakshasis who aren't so, they're very well dressed in this painting, but they're normally not depicted that way. To harass her, torment her, do anything you can, break her will, she should submit to me. And Hanuman is perched on a branch of the tree, very small, like a cat, observing everything. There he is in the tree above Sita. And one of his queens takes him by the arm and sends him back to the palace. She's take his instructions seriously. They harass her and harass her and harass her. We're going to see more close-up image of this painting where Hanuman's in the tree and Sita's looking up. There's a very old style painting of the same. And there's Hanuman in the tree and Sita looking up. And this very celebrated section, he is considering what to do. And because he's wise, not to do, he just jumps down. She'll think, this is some trick, etc. So in a very pleasing tone, he speaks and sings 95 verses, just glorifying Ram. Very special section, Ram Gita, glorifying Ram's form, and then in a summary way, glorifying Ram's Leela, even a little more expanded than what Narada said to Valmiki, including his own travel, he is, and everything. And Sita's hearing this, and she hasn't heard Ram's name glorified this way in such a long time, she is enlivened, but naturally she's kind of traumatized. She's really worried. What's this? Is this another trick? So very carefully, Hanuman comes before Sita, and says, because he repeats who he is Ram's messenger, and he shows the very ring that Ram had given to Lakshman. So, and she recognizes it. It was a gift from Janaka. She recognizes it. So she's so pleased that he's a genuine representative of Ram. And he's come all the way to comfort me in this way. And she's convinced now because who do you trust in Lanka? And here's this little monkey. He then offers to take her all the way back to Ram. And Sita is overwhelmed by his risk. Notice the little ring at the end of his tail. That's cute. And he makes his body really big, and says, "I'll carry you." This is he wants to smash Rakshasas, and Sita says no. She's compassionate. Even in this circumstance, she's very compassionate. They're just carrying out the order of their master. They're not to be condemned, not to be harmed. And Hanuman volunteers. He's really small. He says, across the ocean, he says, I can make myself really big. And he makes himself really big. And really big. And really big. And she declines. And she gives multiple reasons, very wise reasons. Why? When you're flying through the air with me on your back, there's going to be a battle. And how are you going to get off the battle while I'm on your back? And when you're flying over the sea, if that works out, you're flying over the sea, you move so fast it may fall off. And aquatics can eat me, so that's not a good idea. And most importantly, it's Ram who should redeem me. And so if you can carry a message to Ram, then that would be the best. And the message he wants carried to Ram is come quick, because it's very unbearable, the circumstance. And Ravana could do anything time. Well, please come quickly. Please come quickly. And so that Ram knows, you met me just like you gave me his ring. Here's a jewel that Janaka gave to Ram during their marriage. You'll recognize it. Please show this to Ram. Very symbolic. She is ready to be restored with Ram. Mission accomplished. Things. Find Sita, report back. Now Hanuman goes above and beyond all of duty. He wants to have audience with Hanuman, with Ravana. And so he figures out a very simple strategy to see Hanuman. He starts wrecking the pleasure garden. And you see Sita in the background, and you see Hanuman picked up tree trunks and smashing people. But before he smashed people, he just started smashing the garden. And word came that he was smashing the garden. And so Ravana sent one of his chief generals, you see Hanuman with his hand on his throat, Jambumali. And Hanuman finished him quickly. And after hearing that Jambumali was killed, powerful Jambumali, he sent 7 more of his heaviest generals. Hanuman finished them. He sent 80,000 soldiers. Hanuman finished them. Huh. Who is this person? So he then sent Indrajit. And Indrajit sent a Brahmastra. And the Brahmastra struck Hanuman. But Hanuman knew he had this prediction from the demigods that he couldn't be harmed by such a weapon. And so he agreed. His whole purpose was to get to meet Ravana. So he meets Ravana. They tie him up in ropes. Another version says the ropes diminished the power of that potent weapon. And he's standing before Ravana thinking, he's so powerful. If he wasn't so filled with unrighteousness, he could be by the side of Indra and protect all the heavens and all the creation of the Supreme Lord. Wishful thinking. So he's brought before Ravana, like Sita, he's very explicit. He's indicating, the nature of sinful activity that he has just committed by stealing another man's wife and wishing to make her his. This is very sinful. What kind of leader are you? When Ram is not present, you're a coward. You're this, and you're that, you're that. You'll bring destruction. If you have no idea how powerful is Ram. You'll bring destruction to your whole dynasty immediately. It's a very simple solution. Just give Sita back to Ram. Everything will be nice. And Ravana listens, and he flies into a rage. And he wants to kill him. And Vibhishan intervenes. Vibhishan intervenes by invoking the codes of Dharma. Ravana doesn't care for it. The codes of Dharma says, if a emissary or a message carrier cannot be killed, they can be appropriately given some punishment, but they cannot be killed. And Ravana says, all right, we won't kill him, we'll just dismember him and send him back. But it was then decided, this is Indrajit appealing, to not kill him. You see Hanuman with his tail all bound up by rags, because they had this idea that, they just put rags around his tail. Monkeys are very fond of their tail. And Hanuman looks very casual about it, because he has an idea that is want to parade him through the city to show everybody, we've got him. The one that burned the city, we got him. He thinks this is great. This will give me another opportunity to do some spy reconnaissance. Wrong. I can see the layout of the city. And after he does some of that, he decides by his own mystic power to make his body very small, get out of the ropes, and then he flies around the city, burning the city. Many, many, many paintings of Hanuman burning the city of Lanka. So this wasn't what Ram asked of him, but his purpose was to strike fear and put them at ease and teach them a lesson. Don't mess with Ram. He said that to them, you think I'm powerful, that there's a million of souls like me as powerful as me. So you're making a big mistake. You should give. So many such paintings. The city of Lanka is being burned, and pandemonium downstairs. And Hanuman is, look at the one on the right, he's having a great time. And finally, after burning Lanka, he goes to the shore of the ocean, and he's looking back at Lanka in flames. And he's now feeling something. I I acted impetuously. Maybe Sita has become harmed. Then he hears a voice from the sky where the gods let him know Sita is safe and protected. In the course of his moving around Lanka, that he's not feeling any fire in his tail, and he realizes that Sita was offering prayers on his behalf that he wouldn't feel any pain. Sita and Hanuman are very affectionate to one another, naturally so. So there he goes, back to with his tail on fire, back to report to Ram. He found Sita, and she's safe, and he comes before Ram in Kishkinda. He doesn't look so enthusiastic, but he's very enthusiastic. Hanuman is not just Hanuman. He comes with all the vanaras because he comes first to the shore, tells the whole story, they make a big journey to get to Kishkinda. And Ram is so pleased. He knew that Hanuman would be successful. Now, it's not that she's back in his side. He was ready to bring her. But he gave Ram Sita's jewel. And Ram was overwhelmed with gratitude, saying, how can I possibly repay you? There's only my embrace, and there's nothing better for Hanuman than Ram. Now, you all know these pastimes. You know these pastimes? Yeah? Mostly? Some details, but mostly. So hearing them again and again is a way of bringing our appreciation, the kindness of Ramachandra, and the affection that's there when one does some selfless service for the personality of Godhead, as Hanuman is known to. And he's ready to give himself to such a servitor. And that's the end of Sundarakanda. I like this painting. Deeply in contemplation on his message. Now there's more, but I'm not going to do this evening. There's more of what happens during the Yudhya Kanda. And I think what we'll do just to complete, we didn't speak about Lakshman. We gotta speak about Lakshman. And then, the ladies who were involved in Ram's Leela. You know the names of the ladies in Ram's Leela? Yeah. You know her? Shabari? The ascetic lady that lived in the ashram of Sage Matanga? Oh, yeah. Now remember. And do you remember the name of Vibhishan's wife? She was involved? Sarama. She comforted Sita when it was necessary. And Trijata, mystic Rakshasi, she told the dream that she had and had the Rakshasi leave Sita alone and treat her respectfully. There's more. And there's some bad people too. Shurpanaka and Mantra. We're going to hear about them also. It's like a big cast of personalities, each playing a certain role, some favorable, some unfavorable, but all strengthening and heightening our focus on Lord Ramachandra. Okay, let's see if there's some discussion. Sundarakanda or anything. We have one. Okay.
This is from Shweta. Whereas we know that the demons who were killed by Lord Rama got liberated. Who were killed by Hanuman also get any physical benefit?
We don't know if the demons killed by Ram got liberated. We know that they did not get liberated. The demons killed by Krishna got liberation. The demons killed by Ram did not get liberation. The demons that were killed by Krishna's associates, like Arjuna and Bhima and others, they got liberation. It's stated directly in the Canto, chapter 7 of the Bhagavatam. There's a whole long list of who got liberated, and including the statement that even those who were in service to Krishna, the demons they killed got liberation. That's not the case with the demons killed by Ram. So then the next question is, what did they get? There's not a really clear answer, but the best I've been able to find is there's a heavenly planet where kings or kshatriyas, when engaged in combat, they go, called Vira Svarga. You know the meaning of Svarga, right? It's heaven, Svarga. Vira is valor, power. Kshatriya has Vira, strength. Krishna's name is Viryavan. He's a possessor of great Virya. So there's a heavenly planet. Yes.
Devatas or
Say it again.
Hanuman come in Devatas category?
He comes in a servant of Ram category. He's not, Devatas, generally speaking, Devatas are controllers of universal affairs. Hanuman is not controlling universal. Hanuman is a servant of Ram.
Is there any significance in India, like Hanuman temples are common and people do devotion towards Hanuman? Like the significance?
Yeah, there's people, there's a whole range of people who worship Hanuman. Just like there's a whole range of people who worship Devas.
Who is the first one to be killed by Hanuman?
For the people online so they can hear. What's the second question again?
Yeah. Who was the first one to be killed by Hanuman?
Who was the first to be killed by Hanuman?
Right.
As far as I know, it was Jambamali, the general that was sent by Ravana.
And in Ram Leela and even in Krishna Leela, like Lord chose to kill and then Putana. So why did Lord chose like?
What's the significance that the first demon that both lords killed was a female? That question?
On the eighth list.
Okay. That question was, a hot topic for a while in the, in the devotee circuit. And the best answer came from Hari Parshad Prabhu's translation of a commentary by Hari Suri. You know Hari Parshad? Some of you know Hari Parshad. The speaker with the microphone doesn't. He's a disciple of Radha Govinda Maharaj, and he's accomplished in Sanskrit, and he likes poetic things. One of his favorites, as is Radha Govinda Maharaj, is one of his Hari Suri, S-U-R-I. And he writes a commentary about the Putana. He writes a commentary on Krishna's Braja Leela, some number of 100, some several hundred verses. And they're all very interesting. So his Hari Suri's translation or commentary is that the very first thing that a living entity has as an obstacle is attraction for wealth and female form from a man, obviously. And So Putana, came all dressed, looking like the goddess of fortune. Maybe she's this, that. So people just let her get by because of that opulence. And so, and very beautiful. She had the mystic power to become attired like that. So Hari Suri indicates this is a way of Krishna removing that obstacle. Now, that's specific to Putana. Now, what about Tataka? Because she was misshapen and ugly. But prior to that, she by a benediction of Lord Brahma, very, very beautiful. As powerful as something like 100 elephants. She was very powerful. But she became cursed because of trying to kill Agastya Muni. Anyway, there's a story connected with that. But so similar.
It's as per Kshatriya's code of
Yes.
being a woman.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's Kshatriya code of conduct, you don't. Ram did because Vishwamitra said, and he gave his why. This injunction has this exception because Vishwamitra knew Ram would be reluctant because of the codes of Dharma. He's totally, and he gave, there's exceptions to that code of Dharma for those, the other reasons. Because she's such a vile personality, she must be killed. She's devouring Ramanas. He's a cannibal and very powerful. So you must kill her. And Ram says, my father said to do whatever you say, and so I'll do, despite his reluctance. So that means the instruction is superior to anything. You follow? You follow? You know that little example from Chaitanya where, according to Dharma, a devotee should not accept service from a god. But Lord Chaitanya was compromised because Ishwar Puri, his guru, had sent two of his godbrothers to serve him. So he asked Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya what to do. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, you're right. According to it's adharmic. But the order of guru is superior. So you must follow the order of guru. You follow?
Yes.
So because it was ordered by his father, that's the highest dharma. And then there's other sub-dharmas that Vishwamitra said why it was his reason that Tataka should be killed.
Is the Veera Swarga like a fully independent other than the one that was like ruled by Indra? It's like independent.
You're mumbling. Could you say it slowly and clearly?
Is the Veera Swarga like a fully independent heavenly planet?
I have not found any detail about what it is, where it is, what it looks like there, other than it's there. I don't have the answer to your question.
I read in Mahabharata that King Harishchandra, he went to the Indra's house. I was wondering.
Keep reading. I don't have the answer. Over here.
Hi, Krishna Guru Maharaj. Earlier you mentioned that the sun god gave the scriptural knowledge to Lord Harishchandra. And we mentioned that there is no reference.
I have been defined. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
My question is around that. Not that we have a reference, but my question was Lord Ram Guru for?
Well, he didn't give him, grammar. When he first met Hanuman, right? Remember where he first met Hanuman? By Rishamukh Mountain, at the bottom of Rishamukh Mountain, right? Ram commented to Lakshman, impeccable Sanskrit, flawless in grammar, no compromised words. So he was already trained. Because training, as in the Vedas, means all those things. So that one can get access to the Vedas itself, there's all these things one must learn first. And he already had that. So Ram was not that. He was his master, but not his scripture guru. Okay?
And the other question was when you mentioned that Sita, so Ram was so when Sita was, getting affection towards her, but it was Super Soul who inspired her.
Well, I didn't exactly say that because she's Shakti Tattva. But he's acting like he inspired her to behave that way. Not exactly a super soul, but let's say Radharani sometimes talks, insultingly to Krishna. And Krishna likes. So where does that come from? Sometimes he wonders, where does that come from? It's she's Krishna's Shakti. And Sita is Ram's Shakti. So he inspired her, not per se a super soul, because it's not like there's a within the body of Sita. She's Shakti Tattva. But like super soul, inspires others, because it's right in Bhagavad Gita. Correct?
Maharaj, one clarification between Super Soul and Chaitanya. Same thing?
They're the same thing. Yeah. It's speaking of a specific function of the same thing. Same entity.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. Maharaj, my question is around why Lord Ramchandra's demons were killed by Lord Ramchandra didn't get liberation. You see that other avatars, for example, Narsimha avatar, in that when Hiranyakashipu was killed, Prahlad Maharaj asked for liberation and he gave.
But in response to your question, if he was liberated, why did he come back again? Or where did he go in between when he was Hiranyakashipu and when he was Ravana? Where was he? Where was he? Where was he? And what was that liberation that he got? It's a puzzle, isn't it?
So Maharaj, then like in Krishna Leela,
And Krishna liberates him.
and after that we also hear that in Chaitanya Leela also.
Yeah, but that's their counterpart. That's this is very high technology, isn't it? Where they're simultaneously both performing pastimes with the Supreme Lord as Krishna and as Lord Chaitanya. It's very elevated spiritual technology or spiritual understanding. But they're in a state when they're doing that with Lord Chaitanya. Even they may be acting otherwise for some Leela purpose. Our little tiny brain can't fathom all this. At least we can get a picture that our acharyas are providing us to understand that. Just today, I was meeting with a man who is, my guess is 50, and American man, African American man, and he's just exploring Bhagavad Gita, Vedic wisdom, and likes it, and has not zillion. But how does this fit together with that? Fit together with that? One of those questions was, what's the goal? What does it look like? Anyway, so it's not he had a different conception. We went around it around about 6 times. And it ended up, you're just going to have to think about it. So, but understanding things by thinking about it is not how you can understand things. But that's a starting point. Then he'll realize I can't understand it just by thinking about it. But we have to adjust our conceptions to accommodate transcendence. That was one of the topics. What does transcendence mean? What does transcendence mean? And we're not. It's not within our grasp of our mind or our intellect. It's beyond both. We accept it's beyond, then access it. What it is. It's by the hearing process, and so that's our method. Faithful hearing. So back to the question, specific question. Yes, Lord Nrsingadev said to Prahlad, he is already liberated. The question, what does that mean? He was free from sins, yes. That kind of liberation. He was freed from his sins. There's multiple kinds of liberation. And so according to other, there's a very Laghu Bhagavatamrita, the statement that the previous incarnation, previous avatars do not give liberation is very elaborate by Rupa Goswami. Laghu Bhagavatamrita. But when Krishna's pet, this is in Krishna Sandarbha also. Krishna Sandarbha. Krishna uniquely gives liberation. Both those sources. And so they liberate in another way of what liberation means, but not back home, back to Godhead liberation. Their sins are neutralized. But propensity is taken. Because as soon as he takes birth again, same propensities.
While you're meditating on this Bhagavad Gita verse that Yadgat Nivartante Parmamo. So like, if you go back to Godhead, then only there is no chance of finding that.
That's right. So that kind of liberation is not what he received. So then we have to adjust. Because he did come back.
Thank you.
He's asking what is liberation.
What is? That's your. There's different kinds. I'll just repeat some of the points that were made for a 50-year-old man. How old are you? 8, 9, 10, 6 to a 6-year-old girl. Liberation means cessation of material existence. Cessation of material existence, or at least no more material activity, no more reactions to past activities. Neutral zone. Liberation. No more involvement in the laws of nature. Action, reaction, karma, you know what that is, right? No more karma. No more doing material, no more reactions to past material. That's liberation. Then there's further stages of liberation. And further stages, keep it simple, is what do you do in that liberated state? What does a liberated soul do? And that's spiritual activity. That's a further, more matured stage, more developed stage of liberation. That's devotional service. Devotional service where you have a spiritual form, but you have a spiritual form, and you're engaging in spiritual activities using your material senses in the service of the master of the senses. And the spiritual form is driving the machine, body. That's a more matured stage of liberation. So which one do you want? The second one. Yeah, good. Good.
Maharaj, like in Hanuman temples, see him colored like orange.
Yes.
Does it have any?
Yes, we mentioned it yesterday, or the there's a pastime where Hanuman in Ayodhya saw Sita flying vermilion, or there's other terms. Besides kumkum, there's another term, sindur. So whatever, she was applying the part in her hair. And Hanuman asked her, "What's that?" And she said very simple, "Ram likes it." So he went into another room and decorated his whole body with kumkum or sindur or sometimes orange. So sometimes it's red. Often these days it's orange for some reason. And he came back in front of Sita and Hanuman said, "Well, just putting a little part of your hair at least bring good fortune to him. I wanted to plait it over my whole body." So it's a form of Hanuman to mark that loving pastime.
Okay.
Ram saw and just laughed.
Hanuman always says like wherever Ram is there, like Ram's name is there, I am there.
That's correct.
So, but in India we see so many Hanuman temples. Hanuman Chalisa is so like my parents sing that. But we are singing Hanuman Chalisa, but actually Hanuman is taking the name of Ram. I wonder like how did this happen? When Hanuman
Time and modes of nature. Meaning, persons in the material world, generally speaking, want enjoyment apart from the Supreme Lord, Bhagavan. So if you want enjoyment apart from the Supreme Lord, but you're a pious person, mode of goodness, kind of person, you like not honoring so much the Supreme Lord, you like honoring others who are dear to the Supreme Lord. And just like Supreme Lord kind of just fades. It's not like he disappears, but it's like, and it becomes pantheism or many gods. And Hanuman may be someone's favorite, and Shiva may be someone's favorite, and somebody else may be someone's favorite. Ganesh may be someone's favorite for different reasons. And then groups of people, they develop a tradition that looks like this. So time in the modes of nature. And the personality of Godhead becomes obscured. That's how it happens.
Can you share the notes with me?
Yeah. I think you have to come forward unless you want somebody to.
I had one more question. I'm not sure how far this is appropriate, but I want to clarify. So, I heard and I saw one documentary or a movie where Ram and Hanuman fights. So, is that a true thing or it's just?
Is it possible? I mean,
It's Ramanjanaya Yuddha.
Modern writers, filmmakers do all kinds of things.
Not modern, it's like black and white days.
Still, but filmmakers, artists, and writers have a license to be very creative.
Because I want to know from authorities.
I think there's no such thing that I'm aware of from any of the authentic Ramayanas. And there's multiple authentic Ramayanas.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay. Do you think we're finished? Yes. One more? Okay.
Hare Krishna. Please forgive me if this is a redundant question, but if you were to present the Ramayana to a newer audience, let's say like younger college students or like a corporate environment or something like that, uh, would would you would you emphasize the takeaway of accommodating transcendence? And also, what are like two other lessons that you would encourage the audience to take away?
Well, the budget is. If the budget is a good budget, just tell the story because it's fantastic. I read something the other day for the audience, and it was when Ravana was having his battle with Yamaraj. Were you there for that? Okay. Well, it was something out of a modern movie.
Mm-hmm.
Soldiers coming out of everywhere, and Ravan fighting the soldiers coming out of everywhere, seeing them. Yamaraj came and so Ravana was being overwhelmed, and his soldiers are being overwhelmed. And he wasn't used to that. So he got out a special weapon, described the weapon, da-da-da-da-da-da, invoked Shiva, da-da-da-da-da, fired the weapon. Fire came out and went in all directions, and bodies burned like everything. And from the flames of the fire came goblins and this and that and the other thing. And, they devoured all of the Yamadutas. There are thousands and millions. So tell the story straight from Valmiki Ramayana. Depends on the budget.
I think I remember being at the temple for that story. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so in Hanuman flying and doing what he does, and supposing it was a Broadway show, and there's the scene where he's speaking to Sita. I mean, that'd be just beautiful. Rakshasis all around. And there's this little monkey. Anyway, then he gets really big, and it's fantastic. No, likely people would excuse me, see or hear and think it's mythology, but it's not. And they may think it's mythology, but it's transcendental. There's benefit, and we have the presenters have to be careful about the audience making offense. But even if they think it's this is just amazing stuff, there's purification because it's the Lord's pastimes and his devotees. So it depends. Depends on budget, depends on the creative way of the presenter. There are ways that corporate people can understand in terms of a lesson. That's something they can understand. Ethics and morality and virtue. They may not be so interested, but those that are, that can be presented in that way. So it depends on storytelling, really popular. They can then take the story and weave into it values, and people will get it. And then something, anyway, depends on the presenter, the audience, and the. You have something? Find anything? Okay. What? Stop the recording. Okay. Oh,
Try it again.